But I will say you never know unless you try. And everything that's ever happened to me has been because my mom always used to tell me that you're limitless, but you're only limitless when you know what your limits are and you break through them. So you got to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, come on, let's get this cracking.
Can you picture this? Baby, David, good looking, baby. See why I got another one. I see y'all. Yeah. Can you picture this? You know, rocking with CYPT. Podcast of the D with Claire and the crew. It's like my CTV. They be giving game out so much, you could take the same route. Especially if you take risks, this YouTube, you make sense.
Hey, what up, though? You're listening to the CYPT podcast. It's the podcast of the strongest, fastest, most powerful print shop on this side of the Eastern Seaboard. I'm just Niles.
It's your boy Boogie behind the camera.
I'm Clay, also known as Fearless, and today we have a special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I feel like I'm supposed to have like a nickname with it, and I don't have one. So my name is Tay Ford with Heart of the City Photography.
Heart of the City Photography.
I don't know. I needed something cool. I didn't have nothing cool, y'all.
No,
That's cool. That's cool. Tay, just sweet and short. Tay.
What'd you say Tay stood for?
Tay Janae.
Yep, see Tay. Yep, cool. There you go right there.
Tay Janae.
Heart of the City Photography. How do we get started with that?
So actually, in about 2016, I was taking my son to school. And when I was taking my son to school, I saw this dad holding both his daughter's hands and like walking them to school. And they was like laughing and joking. And I was like, I wish I could take a picture of this. And I mentioned that to a friend. And during that Christmas that came up, they ended up purchasing me a camera. But just like we always do, we say we want to do something. Right. And then it goes on the shelf in the closet.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
So it was in the shelf in the closet. And then when COVID happened, a lot of my friends and family didn't have nothing to do for their birthdays. So everybody was having Zoom parties or we was sneaking over each other's houses.
Right.
And I was like, well, why don't we just take pictures? I got this camera, in my closet. We could just take pictures. And I did my first shoot with my friend Angela for her birthday downtown. And when she posted it, it kind of like started to get a lot of attention. And people was kind of like, well, can you take my picture? Can you take my picture? And it started to grow. And that was before I even named Heart of the City. So when I came up with Heart of the City, it was really because I was actually during COVID going through depression. Okay. And when I was going through depression, I was really taking photos to help me get out of it. So I was doing stuff for other people, but it was helping me see the beauty of life again. Mm-hmm. So taking pictures of my friend for her birthday or taking pictures of people and their families was helping me remember the importance of life. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where Heart of the City came from, which was it wasn't about the buildings or the popularity or the most popular people or celebrities. It was about the people that sometimes we forget to cherish in those moments. Heart of the City kind of came from that. Because I was really trying to remember life.
Now, tell me about that camera that they bought you. What was the name of that camera?
So at that time, when my first camera ever was the T-Rebel 6. And to me, I didn't know nothing about cameras or DSLRs or mirrorless. I didn't know anything. I just knew that it had a camera and a button and it clicked and it took a picture.
You just jumped into this with no experience or schooling or anything.
Nope. I was the selfie queen back like in high school or taking pictures always with my phone, or I had the Kodak wind up camera disposable in high school. So when I got into it, I knew nothing.
So did you prior read the instructions? Because like a camera is like,
it's a little
more than
a couple
it's
buttons.
so much more. It's so much more. No, I didn't.
So you just picked it up and just started shooting.
And I started hearing a lot of like, you have an eye. Like you see things that other people don't see, and it just started to grow from there. And so that was my first camera. And then my mother, I started to take it a little bit more serious. Mm-hmm. So during COVID, I turned my apartment in Novi into a studio because we couldn't go other places during pandemic. So my son had a bunk bed. So I slept on the bottom. He slept on the top. I turned my bedroom into the studio, and I turned my living room into a lobby. So I started doing holiday photos during that time. In my room, and the lobby was the living room, and the bathroom was the dressing room. And my mom bought me all the like equipment, like the lighting equipment and backdrops. And then I told her, I was like, I think I need to get a better camera.
Right.
And at that time, someone was telling me about the 90D. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get a 90D Canon.
Actually, why did you think you needed a better camera?
Because I started to reach out to people. When I started to think or say, okay, I wanted to do this, I started to reach out to people in the industry and try to get information. So I ended up meeting this person named Ed McNeil a few years prior, and he was open to telling me about like what equipment I needed, what software programs I needed if I was serious about it. And at the time, I think he had an 80D or a 90D, and he was telling me like that was the camera to get during the time frame. So I went to my mom, and that was $1,500, and I'm like,
Yes, it was.
Just for the body.
just for the body.
Yes, it was.
Just for the body. So I told my mom, and she ended up purchasing it for me, and it was one of the last things. So my mom and my father passed a few months later. My mom.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. So my mom died of brain aneurysm, and then my dad died 6 weeks later from cancer. So it was like their last thing was pouring into me starting this in this industry and doing this photography. So that was a blessing. But like I told you earlier, that 90D that I had from then, I was very attached to it because it was one of the last things that my mom and my dad like poured into me before they passed away.
You still have it?
I do, but it's broke.
But
I still got it. I still have it. And when it broke, I didn't know what I was going to do at all. I didn't have the finances to get another camera. And then from what I understood when I was trying to do research, it cost so much money to get it fixed because the shutter inside had broke.
So was it, you dropped it or was it?
I was taking pictures at the studio, and it kept having this delay, and then it went to an error in the back.
Oh.
And I couldn't get that error to come off. And then when I opened the inside, the shutter part was like half open, half closed. And it was the craziest thing.
How did that even happen?
It was actually this, I was actually doing no senior portraits when it happened. And I just it was like, okay, God, maybe I just need to take a break. That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe I'm doing too much. I've been utilizing the camera too much. Let me just take a break. I kept trying to get it to work, and it just wouldn't.
Yeah, cameras are very delicate pieces of equipment. Was it under warranty?
No, I didn't know nothing about insurance. I didn't know nothing about. That was one. I asked Mama for the $1,500 when she purchased it from Procam. Mm-hmm. I didn't know about anything about Canon warranties. I didn't read nothing out the box.
No, she picked up the camera.
I picked up the camera and got started. Just
right.
like I made those small mistakes that we tend to do when we move fast.
Exactly.
And we don't take the time to create the foundation. So, but the blessing that came from it was vulnerability. So in vulnerability, I did not know what to do, but I knew that photography was helping me to survive. So even though I was a clinical mental health therapist, I made more doing photography. And when my parents passed away, I took on a lot of their estates to try to keep the legacy. But it caused a lot of financial hardships. It caused me to take out a lot of loans and different things of that nature to try to keep. And photography was helping me to survive. So when the camera broke, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay. And I had just got to a partnership with two of my friends to get a building where I would have a studio finally, and I didn't have to do it out of my apartment.
And you were going big.
I was like, okay, I got the studio, and now I don't have no camera. So what am I gonna do?
So what did you do?
I went to Facebook. I went to the city. I went to the heart of the city. And I was vulnerable, and I just basically told my truth of like what happened. And it was like $50 was donated, then $100 donated, then it was $200. It was people that it was people I didn't even know. But people were sharing my story. A lot of people knew where I started with, because I was always transparent about the studio and the apartment. I was transparent about my dreams and all those things. So people just started to pour into me, and it just kept growing and kept growing. And I got to about 2000, and one of my really good friends ended up calling me and was like, well, you didn't know this, but I had already started to take up a collection because I wanted you to get a new camera anyways. So she ended up having the other amount of $600 she raised on her own just by herself. So I was able to go get my camera. I was able to I put it out on Facebook as I got it. I took pictures with it. I just thanked the community, but it was really the community.
You got a little extra. You got a little extra.
Yep, I was able to get a lens.
A lens.
Yep.
Great.
So I was able. So I got the body, but I also got the 24 to 105.
Awesome.
Which it's kind of like your everyday lens, which allowed me to just go right back into it. And then because it was a mirrorless camera, I had a DSLR, which meant I'm sorry if this is all this term, but because it was this, I had to get a mount.
Okay.
So I can use all my old lenses because the new camera didn't take the same lenses unless you had the mount. So I was able to really move forward, and it just was a blessing because if I never was vulnerable, or if I never shared my story, if I never asked, because sometimes you don't want to ask people for a camera. You don't want to ask people for
anything,
right? So you ask somebody for $1, you scared, right? So telling people that I'm looking for $2,000, I didn't expect it at all. But it really made me remember my why again, which is that we at the core, our hearts are pure. And we forget that we all can pour into each other. And it didn't have to be always about money. It was about people praying for me. It was about people showing up. I had people that was like, well, until you get the money for it, you can borrow my camera. Until you get the money for it. I did. I had maybe 3 people that let me borrow their cameras because I still had photos and shoots and events I still had to do while the money was being raised. So people were letting me borrow their cameras without renting. Just allow me to borrow their cameras. I had people that donated their older cameras, like their T-Rebels, because I was doing a photography class with kids. So kids could utilize the older cameras. So it was it wasn't just about the money, it was about the people that came from that situation. I hope that answers. I feel like I talked real long, y'all.
No,
sorry.
That's fine. Did you get the same kind of camera? Another 90D when you got?
No, I got a Canon R6, which is a mirrorless camera, which was a newer version or a newer model that Canon had.
All right. And is that all you did was photography? Did you ever get into any video or anything like that?
I have not. I feel like I know what I was kind of called to. And then I look for partnerships. So one of the things is that with photography, it's opened so many doors of connecting with people because there's so many people out here who's doing photography and doing video. I've realized the importance of partnerships.
Okay. So did you get into any partnerships in your business?
Yes. So I started to connect with other photographers with different job opportunities. I started to connect with videographers to help me on certain things. I started to work with kids in regards to internships or learning about the cameras, being able to express ourselves through cameras and photography. So learning how to express our emotions, how to de-stress, tolerate. I was able to really connect with people as a whole through photography. And then it opened up the door for me. I think, as I told you before, I'm a clinical mental health therapist, but before that, I worked in nonprofits. So I have a nonprofit too. So the people that I connected with during that time frame, I was able to utilize my photography to help out with their businesses and their branding, and able to barter, which we don't talk a lot about, in services, and connecting with people to help them grow, which allowed me to be referred to so many people. So Heart of the City was just something I did to, like I said, to help me remember life and cherish life. But it's opened the doors for me to help people cultivate their movements. I met you all the other day because I was preparing for this young lady named Alexa Turnage and her husband Johnny Turnage. They have blessed me so much with Black Tech Saturdays. So Black Tech Saturdays is an opportunity for entrepreneurs and founders in the tech industry that are Black to come together at New Lab. And it started off like 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. Now they have impacted like 5,000 people that come out, and they would take pictures on the staircase. So you saw the growth over time, and I was the photographer that took the pictures. And because they opened up the door for me in this sector, I started to be able to capture moments in the city that people don't even know about is happening. And it all came from me knowing Johnny from our past. And I've been so grateful because it's opened up doors for me to capture more than just life events, but movements across the city. And that's been a blessing.
So tell me about what Heart of the City is doing now. We heard the beginning of the story. Tell me a little more about what's going on. What's an experience like when I get in contact with Heart of the City? How does that go?
Yes, so most people, it's mostly referral based.
Okay. It's
been a lot of word of mouth, and that I've been very blessed with. So from churches, from corporate organizations, from families, I've had the opportunity to capture moments when people proposed, got married, got pregnant, had the child. So I've been able to follow people, family generations, and special moments through their life. So when you get Heart of the City, you get to stop time for a moment, and you get to cherish those moments. I think there are amazing photographers in the city. I think there are amazing videographers in the city, and I know we always put like what makes us different or what makes our special. I think that we all have this superpower that we need to step into and know that it is a superpower, because you are literally stopping time for a moment that people are able to cherish. When you look back at a picture, you remember the smell, you remember the sound, you remember how you felt. And the pictures that I capture, I try to make sure that you feel that in the photo. So I know some things are up here, but one of my favorite is, I believe it might be on this side, but it's a family with their hands on top of each other. So you got the dad's hand first, the mom hand, the older son, and then the baby hands together. And it's like, you don't see their faces, but you still feel something.
Right.
So I think with Heart of the City, you feel
the images.
You feel the images, but you remember sometimes what you may have had in the past, may have now, or maybe sometimes what you feel like you lost.
Is it all on site, or is there a studio I can visit?
So I have a studio. We, me and my partners, Kiara and Angela, we were able to rent out a space off of Livernois. So we're at 15140 Livernois, and that was even a blessing. So when I tell you, like,
tell us about that. How did you come into that space?
Okay. I feel like I got so many stories, so I don't even know where to start, because when I say God has been on my life, because I never imagined any of this. Like I said, I started in my apartment, and then as a photographer, I reached out to people on Instagram and DMs, and I was a DM person, like, hey, are you looking for a mentee? Can I like work with you? And sometimes you get people that like leave you on red, like they see it and they don't respond.
That happens.
And you understand, because it's a lot of people that probably could reach out to them.
Right.
But I kept reaching out until people started to like open up doors and tell me about opportunities. So I had the opportunity to, if people don't know, CJ Hart Studios, they allow freelance photographers to rent out their studios. And they provide the equipment, so all the lighting equipment. If you don't have a camera, you can rent the camera. They have props, and I'm not talking about just like small props. I'm talking about couches, Christmas trees, like the stuff that you
need.
Yes, and they provide it at a fee. And when I learned about that, I was able to grow as a photographer, because I was able to ask questions. They had photographers on site that would help you set up. So that's when I first learned how to utilize lighting. That's when I first got out of auto, because I was shooting in auto.
Okay.
That's when I learned how to put up backdrop paper. And it was because of them that I gained more confidence. And I started to gain more clientele because now I was working in a professional studio and I was able to produce even higher quality images. And from there, I had wrote like in this like timeline, you're on your vision board.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, one day I'm gonna own my own. Like that's the goal. It's one day to own my own studio. But I wanted to do art expression too. So I wanted to utilize photography to help people with mental health be able to express themselves. So I was like, I really want a building. I want to bring things together because I do a lot with suicide prevention and bringing mental health awareness to our communities. And we don't know that expression and creativity helps us as much as it is important for us to talk about mental health. It's important for us to express it and us to visualize it. And as in the African American culture, we're more hands-on and creative, and we want to see those things. So I wanted to bring photography and art together in a studio space. So I talked about this dream with my friends, and we was like, okay, well, she was trying to get a building and do some things, my friend Angela, and then our other friend was looking to do some things with her own business. And we all had different visions, but our goals and our missions was really similar.
Right.
So we started to look for buildings where we could, instead of doing it on our own, let's look for a building together. So we started to look for the buildings together, and it just wasn't working out. And what I mean by that, it was either too small, or it didn't have all the qualifications or that we wanted, or the expectations, or it cost way more than it was really worth. So we stopped, and we decided to take a break on it. And during this time frame, I went through some more like financial hardships. And Kiara called, I want to say the beginning of February, like right before Valentine's Day, and was like, I found a building, y'all.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. And I'm like, I ain't got no money. And I'm like,
Perfect, wrong time. Though.
It always happens like that.
like, I don't got no money. And it is perfect. So it's a 5,000 square foot building off of Livernois, and it had a lobby.
Livernois and what?
A Finkel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it had a lobby. It had a space where I could have a studio, a space where I could have a dressing room, a space where I could have an office.
That's huge. 5,000 square feet.
It's still, it's huge. And then Kiara does childcare with the girls' vault, so she was able to have like her own space for childcare. And then Angela does therapy, so she was able to have her own space. And the idea was that we could all have our own spaces, but then it had this middle section where we could do events and programming, and we could do that shared. So we all got our own private, but then together we were able to create something. So Cultivating Spaces is the name of the building, and the idea was that we were being able to till the ground. So all of our businesses were able to come together. So you had therapy, photography, and childcare all in one space. And it was like, how does all these things go together? But they
Actually, they go together perfectly.
They did.
Yeah. You made it work.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah. So again, I got that call and I had no money. And I was like, all right, y'all.
So what did you do?
Told the truth. And I think vulnerability and truth has been my biggest blessing these last 3 years. I told them the truth that I didn't have it right now.
I'm waiting to hear how you got in there.
Because I told them I couldn't do it. I was like, I don't have it right now. And they basically was like, we doing this and we doing it with you and we got you until you got it and you can pay us back or whatever you need to do. We got you. And again, it was like another moment in my life where I'm like, okay, God, like I've been trying to push away from, or things been happening with photography or things are telling me to stop. But then it's people. And it's really the heart of the city that's like helping me to keep going. So, yep.
What year was this?
This year.
You just got this building this year?
So this happened February 2023. We got the keys.
Nice, congratulations. Nice.
Thank you. We got the keys. That following week, we did a grand opening in May. And it's been a blessing because it's still some hardships, of course, because, of course, who knows what comes with a building if you never had a building before.
Oh, yeah. A lot.
Right? So you learn about all the things from financials to things breaking to, you know, if it rains, certain things, you know, happen and you learn all this stuff. But it's been like God's hand has been on my life the whole time. And every time I think I can't, he reminds me how limitless I am with him. And that has been the biggest blessing with this photography company is because I never started it looking to be paid. I never started it to look for money.
It was a passion.
It was a passion, but it was really to save my life. It was really to remember that life was worth living. And I think with the photography, it helps people remind them of the hope in between. Because when you look at photos, when you are in really hard moments, it reminds you of those moments that still can happen or moments that you cherish. And I think that's why I'm so grateful for it, because even now, like I said, having the opportunity to go into corporate photography is a whole nother level. Like, and it was scary because I was used to, you know, just family photos and portraits and lifestyle. When you go into corporate, you know, it's not that you give anything different because your quality should always be the same. You should always give your best to anybody, whatever level. But it is scary because now you got corporate companies that can pay more and they are looking for a bigger, you know, more expectation, and it's that fear of you don't want to mess up or you don't. I was telling my partner that the fear sometimes of we sometimes live in a world where everybody does. It's kind of like the bread when you go down the bread aisle. You know, it's all these different bread brands, all these brands, and it's like, well, am I worthy to still make something because it's all these different brands out here? Right. Will I stand out? And that's how I kind of felt at first going into some of my first corporate gigs. Was like,
are you going into these companies, or are they reaching out to you? Are you reaching out to them? How are you getting these contracts and jobs with the corporate companies?
They've been reaching out to me.
Oh, great! So you're doing good work. That's why they're reaching out.
I think it's good work, and I think it's also who you are as a person and how you carry yourself.
Oh, you have a beautiful spirit. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
We gotta get her on the podcast. Like
I appreciate that, but I think it's really that, because we all have a story at whatever level we are in life, and sometimes we forget that when we walk into rooms or certain situations with people or businesses or brands, because sometimes we look at the what and forget the who. And I think that who I've been as a person has opened these doors for me. Like I said, photography has been the last 3 years, but prior to photography, I did a lot in the community with our elders, with mental health, with our youth and bullying, with suicide prevention. So a lot of the people that's reaching out to me, I've had connections from in other areas of my life, that when they saw me start doing photography, I was kind of like that first choice or the person they reached out to, because they already knew who I was as a person. But I always tell people, and I tell rather photographers or anybody in any area of your life, is to just try. Like, you are always at no if you don't try, and you are always at no if you don't try things you don't feel like you're made for or you were supposed to do. So for instance, with that, like I said, the corporate companies that have been reaching out to me, it's because of the connections I've made and taking photos of people and them sharing it on their LinkedIn or sharing it on their professional websites. I was, I've done headshot photos of individuals and they shared it and people are like, who did your headshot photo? Yeah, like who did your headshots? And I was so afraid when it came to corporate because I guess it was more so of you start to be known more. And as much as my name has always been in front of me, I've always liked to be behind the scenes because I do feel like you become more vulnerable when people start to see you. Because for people to hear like, oh, companies are reaching out to you, you do get that negative talk of like, well, what makes you so different? Or you get the negative talk of, well, your quality is not as good as such and such. So how did you get this opportunity? And you get people like that. And you get that negative talk.
Well, what do you do? How do you combat that? What do you tell them?
So for me, it's really been kind of going back to the whole thing of like, I say it all the time, like, this is all of God. This is none of me.
It's for like, you. It's for you. You have mentioned that you reached out to mentors. Did you finally get a mentor?
Yes.
And who is that mentor? And what one thing that he taught you that sticks with you and you like live by wholeheartedly every day?
Yes. So actually, it just happened, and that's why my excitement is so exciting.
Okay.
Because it just happened. Because I've been looking for a mentor for years, to the point I even put it on my vision board. I prayed about it because as you do start to go into these different levels, you don't know what you don't know. And you could do all the research and you could do all the classes, but it's different when you have somebody that takes you under their wing and actually helps to encourage you how to negotiate prices and how to.
Yeah, you need that.
Yeah, like if you don't know what you're doing,
right?
Or somebody to tell you the truth,
right?
When your work could be better. Like you need to focus on this or this. So I looked for that for years, and I had the opportunity. So again, back to Johnny, he was like, "Hey, you should do TEDx." So TEDx gives the opportunity for photographers to put in an application and join the photography team to capture TEDx Detroit.
Okay.
So I put in my application, and it is directed by Sean Lee, and he's the director of photography. So you put in, and it's a volunteer opportunity, but it gives you the opportunity to work in an event space and also to learn how to work with other photographers. So I put in my application, and I end up getting the email, and I called Johnny like immediately, like, oh my God, I got accepted. So TEDx had been on my vision board to speak at one day since I was younger. And every year since I made that vision board, I've had a different opportunity with, first it was being an attendee, the next was volunteering, and now this time was being a
so each year has progressed.
Each year has progressed. So I get the opportunity, and it's at the soundboard this year. It was at the soundboard this year. So I'm like, okay, I'm going in. I'm super excited. I called Johnny. I screamed when it happened. And he was like, I knew it, but I couldn't tell you.
Oh.
And I was like super excited. So again, this person that I met during another part of my life was encouraging me to try things that I wouldn't have probably knew about or tried. And when I got there, I ended up meeting Sean. So we did come like videos beforehand to meet and introduce you to the whole entire team. But I got to meet him, and I got to meet all the different photographers there. And I'm talking about, you had every level photographer. You had those who were very new to photography. You had those who had like 20 years experience. And when everybody was so welcoming, people was letting you use their camera lens. Like I had a 70-200, but I had an EF 70-200, and it was like an older model, and it was a 4, which means it didn't let as much light in for the aperture. and one of the other photographers was like, oh, you can use my lens. Now, this lens that he gave me was like $2,000. He didn't just met me 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
He's like, you can use my lens. And he ended up giving me his lens to shoot with that day. Another photographer I had just met that day gave me my first harness. So I used to always just wear the strap around my neck. I felt like I was real fancy. I had like a whole back harness now, and I was able to put like cameras connected to it. I was like, these are all people that I literally just met. And they were all willing to help you. I think I'm okay with lighting. But we don't shoot with we wasn't shooting with a flash, so you couldn't shoot with a flash. So you had to go into the different rooms and be able to quickly change your lighting, your ISOs and stuff like that. And people with more experience was just jumping right in, like teaching me and helping me figure it out. And it was like a room full of mentors, like at that moment. But Sean, he kept encouraging like all of us, and he ended up doing he was the last TED Talk at the event, and all the photographers came together at the end, and we was kind of cheering him on, and his talk was called Greater Than Difficult. And it made me realize all those moments in my life that was difficult, it was still something greater that was still helping me to get through those moments. And it was people that, again, it goes back to being the heart of the city. It was the people that just genuinely move with their heart. So I reached out to Sean and would ask him questions. So then that's when corporate gigs started to come in. Like, I want to say like right after that, opportunity started to come in, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to go about it. I'm used to, I think the most at the time I was ever, getting paid was like from wedding photography. So going into corporate, I didn't know where to go, how to manage it, how to negotiate it, how you incorporate travel and equipment, and I didn't know any of that, and I was like panicking, and I didn't think he was gonna like answer because I'm like, why would he answer? Like, and he did, and he was very open, and he was very sharing, and he was very supportive. So I just asked him last week. I was like, all right, you've been helping me, but can you like officially be my mentor? Because you see something and you've experienced things that I haven't. And I always tell people, especially my youth, that you don't want to be the smartest one in the room.
Right.
You don't want to be the smartest one in the room. And it doesn't mean that you are better than anybody if you happen to be that person that at that moment. But when you are at that moment and you are that person, then reach back and give to others. And that allows you to move forward. So that's how I felt with this opportunity was, here I am with this person in front of me who has all this knowledge. He could either say yes or no. And he said yes. So I was like super excited. So if people don't know, there is, I never knew about the Professional Photographers of America Association. Like I didn't know about that. And it's a conference that's happening at the end of this month, where you can meet photographers from all around the world and learn about different things. I knew none of this stuff. And I think when you start to put yourself in other situations or in other rooms, you allow yourself to get information and you allow yourself to connect with people. And when you are able to do that, you're able to reach back. So for me, I have the opportunity now to be in these different rooms, but now I get to be like, okay, I start working with youth. So I have a intern from my old high school that's been working with me on certain projects. And then I've had this idea of opening my first gallery because now I have the building, right? So what am I going to do with this building?
With 5,000 square feet.
And I was like, well, I asked my partners like if we could do a gallery and have like local photographers or artists come showcase their work.
Nice.
Nice. Really
So
nice.
it's like when you get these blessings, how do you use them? So I feel like I've been talking. Hopefully this was good to y'all.
Oh, it's
Just
It's been
wonderful.
wonderful.
I had a quick question about like how you said you like to capture moments in the city that most people may miss out on. Do you have any like experience or story that you can share about like an example of that where you got a moment that we may have missed out on?
Yes. So I love our elders so much. And I think that when you see photography in our city or just more popularized photography, you don't see elders. You don't see our seniors. You don't see pictures of them. So I had the opportunity to work with a program called Golden Connections Services, and I was able to gift a photo shoot to a senior.
Those are some really powerful pictures when you shoot like older people. It shows a lot in the photos.
Yes. Yeah. So that was a blessing. I think also our Black men. I think those are moments that we miss because we look for these like polished photos, and it's just more so of like people in the moment and people being them. So I had the opportunity to capture like fathers playing with their children. I was able, like I said, with our seniors. So I went to breakfast at a Coney Island, and super random, but me and my friends used to talk about where are older Black men, like our 60 and plus Black men, like not we know they at church sometimes, but like where do they go hang out? At?
Marriage girl. No, keep going. Get out.
Said where?
Coney Island.
Coney.
That's where they. So we went to breakfast at Coney Island, and it was like this one Black man came in, this older gentleman, and he was sitting at the table, and he had, I guess they knew him at the Coney Island, and they got his coffee, and then all of a sudden, it was like all these older men just started coming in one by one, and they was like, shaking hands and sitting with each other, and and it was like, this is beautiful. So I had the opportunity to capture. I just happened to have my camera with me, and capture that moment of them just
Nice.
Being in their element. And I thought that was like a time stop, because another thing is that you don't, and this is just being real, see a lot of our Black men grow old, and you don't see those photos of older Black men.
So did they have an opportunity to get those photos out? Like when you just broke out your camera and started shooting, you just give them a card and say, if you want to get this photo, call me. Is that how it works?
Card, and also their emails or phone numbers, and everything is usually uploaded on my website.
Okay.
And you have like my client portal. But yep, photos and just my website.
Okay.
And especially if they have any troubles or issues with that, I send it directly.
So as far as like somebody trying to get like a professional portrait or just like a photo shoot, but they want it outside of the studio, do you have any like go-to places that you go to in Detroit that maybe have like a nice background or scenery that they can take pictures at?
I think downtown Detroit is amazingly beautiful, and we need to utilize it for photography as much as we can. There are so many spaces that are being activated, the alleys, murals on the walls. I think my favorite spot when I first started was Eastern Market. Like, I loved Eastern Market.
It's a lot of culture in Eastern Market.
Man.
So much.
Man, and then especially then going to the DeQuinder Cut.
A lot of culture there.
Yep. So then you had it just was a whole vibe. So I tell people all the time, like, especially as a beginning photographer, even as you go into throughout your career, finding these spaces that you don't have to pay for is always a blessing. But there's so many spaces being activated in downtown Detroit. Like, utilize them. Utilize them. I shot at Shinola Hotel, like the lobby. A lot of these places won't charge you. Sometimes you gotta be quick, but
Right.
but a lot of these places won't charge you. But then I always say also spend time with your client to get to know them, because you might pull out stuff that allows you to capture special moments. So it could be a school that they attended, and that be in the background. neighborhoods that they grew up in. Even like for me, it was like bridges was something I was really big into, and capturing moments with people by bridges, and the beauty and essence of connecting two things that are separated. So like getting to know your client and what they're looking for helps you to also understand how to bring that out in what areas to look for too.
Do you edit your photos that you take yourself?
So I do, but I'm learning as you grow, you want to look into other like retouchers that can edit for you. So I do not, and this is still being transparent too, I do not edit in like Photoshop.
What about Lightroom?
I do Lightroom because
Okay.
that's what I was first introduced to, and I got so comfortable with it. But now when I went to TEDx, they was like, no, you need to go into Photoshop. This much easier now to learn. You still gonna take time and learn it, but once you learn it, like it's a whole nother level too.
Did they say Photoshop was easier than or better than Lightroom for photos?
Yes, in regards to the fact that there's more things, I guess, available now with Photoshop. I think if you know both is good, but I don't have any experience with Photoshop. A lot of my stuff has been Adobe Lightroom, and now that Adobe Lightroom, they have AI coming into it in premium. So I've been playing around with Adobe Lightroom since the very beginning, and I am terrified of Photoshop because I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm very comfortable with
Have you
Adobe.
already started playing around with any of that AI stuff on Lightroom or any of it? So what does it do?
So I've utilized like the AI portraits, which enhances the photo. So it might, in regards to like slimming maybe their facial features, it automatically gives you the lighting that it thinks that it should have. You could put in you could put like the AI eyebrows. It adds a different eyebrow look to them. It could put on full lips,
do some crazy
lipstick.
stuff. Like back in the day, we didn't know what we would get. We shot film, and you was lucky if you like got a good picture. So have you experimented with like shooting with any film, because you started pretty late? So have you got into like film or tried to shoot with film?
No, I want to. I want to. But that's something I think that's on my goal list is to get into.
Yeah.
Just I want to be able to. I think it's you watch movies and like older movies and stuff like that. My favorite movie, and it's not even an older movie, is The Photograph with Issa Rae. Nobody seen that? Okay.
No. That was Issa Rae and Lakeith.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a beautiful movie.
Yeah, so of course it's a romantic movie, but at the same time, it went down the history with like her mom and photography and how she, utilized the dark rooms and
she built a dark room with like a backyard and a shed. Man, it was
really
wild.
What's the name of the movie?
It's called The Photograph.
The Photograph.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to check that out.
It is a romantic movie, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But that actually makes me want to, or that movie inspired me to want to open my own museum in the future. Dedicated to photographs, but also dedicated to those. So when my parents passed away, I had all this stuff. I had all their stuff. Because we all know that you can't take the stuff with you. But my dad was a janitor.
Okay.
And he used to work at the Fox Theater, the music hall. So he collected a lot of stuff. The Opera House let me do his memorial at the Opera House, and I made it like a walkthrough memorial, because if I would have put on his obituary, it just would have been he was born, he went to school here, he worked here, he died. And I was like, that don't define my
That's
dad.
not him.
That's not it. So I was able to create like a walkthrough memorial with photographs. I went to St. Louis, where he was from, and I took pictures of like the church that he attended, the houses that he lived in, and created this whole walkthrough memorial of his life. And I would love to do that when I become older and retire, is open a museum dedicated to highlighting people in our communities that are not recognized. You're never going to see, and I think it's, I'm gonna just say, I think it's wrong that we don't highlight individuals under 40 that maybe be janitorial staff or our bus drivers or stuff like that. It's like you have to be
some Fortune 500.
Yes, or you have to be this like known founder, and it's like I'm not knocking that because those people worked hard to get to where they are, but it's people like my father that I feel like loved his job and he was a great man, but you'll never know him because society didn't classify him as successful. So through photography, I think we have the opportunity to do that too. And I think that's why I love photography so much, is because taking photos of people that you get to make them feel special and seen and even heard because you're paying attention to what they wanted when they came into photography. So I think Heart of the City is going to grow. And I think it's going to be more than just photography. I think it's going to be an opportunity for people to have a media gallery or have a place where people can find resources. I think that's the same thing with me. Like you said, sometimes it's really hard as a photographer to find a mentor, to know what lenses, to know what places allow you to rent out the studio. There needs to be more community around that, because we all can grow. We all have the opportunity to. And I think that is really at the heart of the city. I think it's taking a step back and not just focusing on just the people that take pictures anymore, but the people that take the pictures, if that makes sense.
Are there any books that you can recommend to any up and coming photographers that you may have read?
Honestly, no.
So do you do a lot of like your research online, YouTube and things like that? Where do you get your information and how do you learn?
Research, YouTube experience, like I said, reaching out to people, following people, seeing their what they do and their skill sets, asking questions, trial and error. Because like I said, I just told you about the mentor. Now I'm able to ask like, hey, I asked him, I was like, is there any classes like you recommend? So now like working with him to get that listing of classes, because I didn't have that information. All the stuff that I've done has been God opened up these doors. It has not been me. Like when I started doing photography, I was in school to become a clinical mental health therapist. I got my degree in clinical mental health therapy. I never went to school for photography. I never.
My dad would just love you. He's a photographer too, and he would talk to you. You have to meet him.
But that's the thing, though. Like, I think books and stuff like this is amazing. And yes, if you know some books, definitely recommend them to me. But I've always been a visual person, and like you said, like talking to somebody with experience, somebody taking the camera and showing you how to work it. And I think this conference. Going to the conference. It's October 26th. It's called the Rock That Conference. Sean Lee is one of the individuals who will be speaking, but there's also Creative Soul in Atlanta that takes those photos of youth that look like superheroes or really amazing individuals. Like they take and give them this whole costume. They're going to be there. So I think like stepping out on faith and going to other places that does photography too, and meeting other people in other places. And then, so I don't have books to tell you, but I will tell you this: there are a lot of conferences and events that are always looking for photographers, and you never know who you meet. Like I said, with TEDx, it opened me up to a collection of photographers with different skill sets and experiences. Or renting out CJ Hart Studios opened me up to meet different photographers that were coming there to rent out studios. So the more that you put yourself out there in places that expose you to other photographers with more experience, I feel like that's educated me more than anything. But I'm not knocking books. I just don't have no book to give nobody right now.
Where's that place that you just mentioned that you can rent out the studio and?
Yep, CJ Hart Studios is in Canton.
Okay,
it's in Canton, Michigan, and it's a pretty large studio. They create actual sets. So like for Christmas, there's a holiday set, and you can actually like rent it out and take your holiday photos there.
What are some of the costs? Just average costs.
So it ranges from 60 to 100 and a little bit more. So you can rent out like an area. So they have it like it's a big warehouse, and they have like different setups of stages of like you have one section where it might be just a backdrop photos. Then you got one section that might be props and setups like that. But you rent out your space, but you can also rent out the whole studio. And it goes by hours. So I think it's like cjhartstudios.com, and you could just rent it out, and you can you do it all online. So you can book your time.
Awesome.
And then you have access to those props. And like I said, I didn't have props. I didn't know nothing about lighting. I didn't know how to do backdrops. I didn't know none of that. And the people that work there, so CJ is the owner. His wife supports with all the decor and setup. And then he had individuals, a gentleman named Tay and Will and other individuals that were photographers that worked there that were so open to teaching you. So let's say you don't know everything, but you're trying this out. It gives you a space to try it out and then ask professionals questions right then and there. And kind of your trial and error too. I was able to play around with lighting and know what worked and what didn't work. Like I said, I shot in auto for the longest because I was afraid of shooting in manual.
Yeah, I wanted to know about your settings when you said that you had no schooling or anything, but auto will get you through for the most part.
It did until
I got in trouble too.
Until it didn't.
Until it didn't.
Until it didn't.
Because when you work in the studio and you connect, like I didn't know nothing about triggers. So when you connect to your trigger
Slave units.
I'm like, what is all of this? And literally the people at the CJ Hart Studios taught me. And they just, again, openly shared. Now, I can't say that's going to be everybody's experience, but I will say you never know unless you try. And everything that's ever happened to me has been because my mom always used to tell me that you're limitless, but you're only limitless when you know what your limits are and you break through them. So you got to know that.
Yeah. I have a question. As a native Detroiter, I, like you, I see this city in like a different way. It's beautiful to me. Do you do any landscape? Because I really like the light that you bring out of the people in Detroit. But I want to know, are there any landscape photos that you do? Or is there anywhere in the city that you believe is beautiful that you take that same energy with just for the city itself?
I don't take landscape photos. But I think the areas that we are missing, that we haven't captured, is the neighborhoods. I think a lot of the like photos, even if you go on to the city or it focuses a lot on downtown. But I feel like we don't do enough of like the neighborhoods, the community, the parks in the summer, people getting out of church. And, like I feel like we need to start capturing, or hopefully people can start capturing those areas, because gentrification is real.
It's real.
It's real. And we need to start capturing those moments of our communities and our neighborhoods and the beauty of them. I think we have a lot of photos of the beauty that's happening in other places of the city, but I think we're not taking photos of those areas.
Yeah, I was just imagining some of the people along with those backdrops would be great landscape. And when you incorporate the people and the landscape, I think you got something special there.
I think that would be amazing. I think about that because my grandparents' home is in the Livernois Outer Drive area, where it used to be like, where a lot of like the Motown people used to live in area. And I believe like taking photos not only in those areas, but those moments. I like older photos too, so black and whites.
Okay.
So I would love to find black and whites of the neighborhoods and taking pictures of the now. And being able to see not only the difference, but the beauty of it too. So yeah, I'm not a landscape person. Just because I don't think I have the eye for it.
So you take pictures of like kids, weddings. Name all the types of pictures that you take. So
Yes. So I started off doing, like I said, portraits of families, individuals, headshots, lifestyle. I got into weddings, and now I'm going into like corporate events and corporate settings, and that has been a blessing because I get to bring me into these corporate settings. So I shoot very tight. So what that means is very close up.
Yeah.
So when I'm at corporate events, usually I'm like right on people's faces, so you can see the emotions and their eyes, and I have been advised to shoot a little bit wider,
so you can have room for cropping. Yeah.
but I do shoot tight.
Show us. I've been looking at this one right here, the one with the people in that beautiful background. What was going on there? I want to know because you have such a beautiful way of bringing this life with the portraits. Mm-hmm. So I want to know about some of the ones that we have on the table here.
Okay, awesome. So actually, this is actually me in the middle, and somebody took this photo of me, and the reason why I incorporated was this is actually my 30th birthday, and this is when I started to really move forward. So this is the T Rebel camera, and what I wanted for my birthday is for me to do a photo shoot of all my friends. So I wanted them to dress up as in the 90s attire, and we went through the what is that area called? It's over by Grand Boulevard. It's like an art district. And I wanted to capture photos of them. And they kept asking me, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I just want to take pictures of y'all.
I want to take pictures.
I want to take pictures of y'all. I want to start building my brand. So I brought this because these are all the people that gave me my first. So when I told you the young lady that would allow me to take her birthday photos,
yep.
It was Angela. So she let me take her first photos. Lauren, who is I call her my sister, she was the very first person that let me take like couple photos of her and her husband. I was able to take photos of Danielle and her children, Jasmine and her family. And like these people are the ones that poured into me with this business. So I brought this photo because this is the raw image of like me starting in photography.
This one, the ones you were saying with the hands.
Yes. So
that's beautiful.
These I don't know how to do this.
No, I like that.
But this is actually the generational photos I had told you all about in regards to starting with a family. So I actually started with this mom and this family when she came for a maternity photo. And then every 3 months of the baby's life, I was taking their photos. So capturing that. So I have like from when he was in his mom's womb to getting up to 1 year old, and those photos of their family. And I thought the hands were so significant, especially in this photo, because it showed the generation, but it also showed the foundation of the man and the sturdiness of his hand being the first hand.
That's absolutely beautiful.
So that was truly a blessing. I think my first photo with the T Rebel was actually during COVID. So, and
like the natural lighting,
but it also was it was a bike, we rode bikes, but it was in the name of Breonna Taylor. And it was during the pandemic, when a lot of issues in regards to our communities, in regards to our Black men and women being killed. So it was a movement. And this young lady, she just happened to have, this shirt on. And I'm like, this is something like we need to capture. But at the same time, it was her hands on her waist was kind of, which was, without you seeing her face, it was kind of like that fed up type of pose. Like, we have to stand.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's conveying. Yeah. That's what I'm getting.
Mm-hmm. So that was something that was really special. This was at a Juneteenth event during the pandemic. And they were spray painting the fist on different walls in the city, in the area. And I just thought that was like, just really important to capture. I believe
The
this.
moments.
And then this one, again, this is a picture of myself that someone took of me. But me and my friend, she wants to do headshot photos. And we end up driving to New York during the pandemic. And I took her photos in New York. And this is Times Square, where it was like, usually it would be super packed, but because of the pandemic, it was nobody in the area. And I was able to capture her photos in New York. Like, and that was an experience too, because it just, again, goes back to being limitless. And just doing things that you wouldn't normally do. So how we ended up in New York, I pulled up on her and I was like, we're going to put different places that we can drive 10 hours or less in a bucket, and we're going to pull it. And we pulled in New York was the place, and that's what we drove to.
How can they contact you if someone wants your services?
Yes. So you can go to heartofthecityphotography.com. You can put in Heart of the City Photography in Google, and it'll bring up different things that I've been a part of. You can go to Heart of the City Photography on Instagram, Facebook. And you can also type in Tay Ford. If you type in Tay Ford in any of the Google search or stuff, it comes up too. And you can always just reach out to me. I'm always open to supporting those who not only want to capture moments, but who want to learn more.
Okay.
Tay Ford, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
All of us here have a little bit of a photography background, but we've all been kind of doing different things, and you really kind of like put that back in like all of us today, and we really appreciate that from you. You really shine the light back on it, on what it's all about, capturing those moments that sometimes are too big for us to really hold at that specific time. I can't thank you enough for that, for real, truly.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I just want to say thank you to both, and all three of you, actually. Like I said, I did not expect this. I was trying to promote my little son. So I didn't expect this at all. And please know that I don't take it lightly. I wish that my parents could be here, because it really started from them being willing to say, okay, we gonna support you. So I guess my last words to anybody would be that maybe it's not your family that's supporting you. Maybe it's not even friends, but all you need is one yes to change your whole entire life. And I'm so grateful that people continue to say yes to me. And those moments that I've gotten no, they didn't stop me. So I just ask you to not stop, even when it feels gloomy. Like I said, suicide prevention is something that is near and dear to me. Mental health is near and dear to me. And that's why photography started for me. And that's maybe not be your why as why you do things, but know that sometimes our most painful moments truly bring out the beauty. And not only us, but what other people who are afraid to say what's hurting them. We'll see. I hope that was enough. Okay, I'm done.
You couldn't have ended it no better. That was great.
Thanks, Tay.
Thanks, Tay.
Boogie.
You have just listened to the Can You Picture This podcast? The podcast for the strongest, fastest, most powerful t-shirt/print shop on this side of the Eastern Seaboard. You can catch us in the heart of Detroit, Greenfield, and Grand River, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our address is 14223 Greenfield Road, Detroit, Michigan 48227. Our phone number is 313-273-5000.